And he says gypsies, they get the most racism out of anything. He goes black, white, I don't care who it is. Try being a gypsy.
Roma.
So
I'm a gypsy.
The thing about gypsies, though, traditionally, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were a traveling band of gypsies. They were street performers, fortune tellers, and hustlers, pickpockets.
Whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
It was all about, they cared about them.
Uh-huh.
Fuck everyone.
Yes.
That was generally the MO.
It's them versus everyone else.
Yeah, whatever.
Go and I go to see if any different kind of entities want to meet me. And this is on a plane ride. It's morning. It's, early. The only psychoactive substance I had was a little bit of coffee. And I'm just meditating, eyes closed, on a packed airplane, Southwest Airlines. And I go in there in my own imagination, in my own mind. I go into my little cave, which has these kind of white, shiny walls. And this gigantic pearlescent white dragon shows up.
The Boston Center for Memory predominantly focuses in the space of neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's disease, and the other dementias. We focus predominantly on the evaluation and diagnosis and treatment, as well as a lot of clinical research, experimental research, things like that.
So when Jarrett came to you and said, all right, what we'd like to do is take a nutritional supplement and study a healthy patient group. What was your thought process when that came to you?
We're always skeptical. We have done some work in supplements in the past with things like ginkgo, and showed that there really was no benefit cognitively from taking ginkgo. So we were surprised that people wanted to come to us. So at any given time, we have a number of clinical trials going on, and it's actually much rarer to have a positive result in one of these trials than it is to not have any result or a negative result. And the deal we had with ONNIT was that we were going to publish these results regardless of what the findings were. We will take this project on, but we will hold you to the exact same standard that we would a Pfizer or a Lilly or anybody else that sends us a protocol.
We had 63 people in this study, and then a pilot study, which also showed some favorable results that added another 20 to that.
Yeah, around that. I think
so
17 or 18.
About 83, which is in that normal kind of phase 1 clinical trial range. The medicine even kicked in. He had me lay down and he had me visualize, and he was saying, all right, Aubrey, see yourself on the moon. And I was looking at him and I was saying, okay, but the medicine hasn't kicked in yet. And he's like, no, just see the moon, see yourself on the moon. I was like, yeah, but the medicine hasn't kicked in yet. He's like, no, just do it. So finally, I just used pure imagination, because my visionary aspect of the medicine hadn't opened up yet. So I just used my pure imagination. I saw myself on the moon. I was like, okay. It's like, someone's there to see you. And I'm like, I'm barely seeing the moon. I can't see anybody there who's there to see me. And he insisted. He just sat there with me and he insisted. He said, there's somebody on the moon who wants to talk to you. And so eventually, just using my imagination, all right, I saw my grandma. And then he said, she has something to tell you. And then we ended up having this dialogue way before the medicine even kicked in, purely on imagination.
That they, were on it and taking it. And, after the completion of the last day or so, around that point, they came back and we repeated the testing. So really the main result of the study showed that the group that was on Alpha Brain had a statistically better ability to recall words after prolonged periods.
And that's a really interesting one, verbal memory, because I remember one of the very first testimonials that Joe Rogan said was when he was talking about Alpha Brain, and this was in our first Alpha Brain video. He says, I feel like it helps me form sentences better.
One of the immediate things that I noticed was that I had a better recall of words. That's the frustrating thing where you're like, what is the word? What is the word? What is the word? That wasn't happening as much. And my ability to form sentences seems smoother. We talked a lot about ONNIT. I will give you an abbreviated podcast sponsor. This is a human optimism. Is that when you say un? Sometimes you're supposed to say N, A-N, and it seems like you should say but really it's supposed to be N. Like, I forget. There's a few examples of that where it's the correct grammar is actually N, and I sometimes pretend I'm smart and try to use it the right way, and I fuck it up. ONNIT.com, ONNIT. My ability to form sentences seemed smoother. It seemed like I had an extra gear, like I was one step ahead of conversations. Now here's